Hello, I'm Marc Price, and I'm the director of Nightshooters. Fuck you! Nightshooters is about a group of filmmakers who break into a building rigged for demolition to shoot a scene for their little zombie movie and accidentally witness a gangland execution. The gangsters don't like that and come after them to try and get rid of any witnesses, and they use their filmmaking skills as weapons to defend themselves. Well, I think I've always been a fan of films about filmmaking. I loved, Living in Oblivion was one that I've always loved, and I kind of thought that it would be really fun to sort of take that concept and look at a film, because the thing I love about Living in Oblivion is they're making a film that I'd have no interest in seeing. But I think I thought, how interesting would it be if there was a parallel film for Living in Oblivion where we could see the movie they were making if that movie was a good movie. And I guess the point in Living in Oblivion is probably that it wasn't meant to be a good movie. I don't know, maybe it was meant to be, it just looked like a bad movie they were making. But I love the idea of all the characters that really, and how they impacted that story of making a film. And I thought, well, we could take that and use it in the sense of the films that I would love to see. I would love to see Dawn of the Deadly, the film that they're making in Nightshooters, which is, to be honest, why we had that whole section of the film anyway. I thought it'd be a really fun way to open the movie. The idea for the film came from Phil DeGuaro, who plays the murder victim in the movie, and he said he knows this place in Croydon, a big abandoned office building, and said you should write a movie that takes place there. So I thought, oh, that's a great idea. It's a location that's available. He knows the guy that runs it. Let's do that. And so we did. And the story sort of came from there. Of course, when it came to shooting in that location, the guy who owns the building said, oh no, you can't shoot here. You've got to give us the same amount of money they gave us to make Suicide Squad. And we went, well, we can't afford that. So we had to find somewhere else to make the movie. We ended up finding an abandoned, a Bosch factory in North London. And the idea was that building was going to get demolished in the third week of our production, which I didn't tell my producer. I said, yeah, we got it, it's fine. You might have to talk to them about the third week. And then, of course, she did, because she's great. And they were really kind and let us sort of stay that extra week and delayed blowing up their building so we could finish making a movie. I say that we were in a building that was rigged for demolition, but it wasn't going to be blown up. It was we were a little bit more responsible than the actual characters in Nightshooters, and the building was, just a boring old wrecking ball that was smashing it up, not anything that goes boom. I think the thing with the budget being as low as it was for this film is that it affects the scheduling that gets affected more than anything else. Who can come in when? Because to keep the budget low, you shoot really fast. And I've got my tricks for shooting dialogue scenes. I mean, I have very specific ideas of how to shoot those. I generally tend to avoid shooting coverage so I can figure it out in an edit. I kind of know exactly what I need to get. And this is the same thing with the fights. I mean, with the fights, we would block out certain camera moves, shoot that, and when it's right, we'd move on to the next shot that links together. And what I'd always do is I'd have another camera with a longer lens, so just shooting the same thing, so that if I get into any trouble, we can cut to that, and it can get us out of jail, and then we can come back to the planned shots. The fight scenes were the easiest scenes to shoot in the film. The weirdest part of shooting those fight scenes was, of editing those fight scenes even, was that when it comes to editing the emotional stuff, that was hard, because I'm like, oh, this needs to play just right. But with the fights, that was a lot easier, because it was that, then that, then that, then that. So I'd often edit the fight sequences when I got stuck on other areas of the film. I go, this is really hard, figuring out how to handle the emotional response to a character death, or what, wanting to use this moment but knowing that I have to do a couple of tricks to get there, and going, I'll put that down, let's get back to some fighting. so the fights are great. And I remember when I ran out of fights to edit, I started going, oh no, now I've got to edit the rest of the movie. Oh, this is the hard stuff. But I think editing the action was great. It was easy and a lot of fun. When it comes to tone, I've always been very comfortable going from humor to drama to and mixing the two, where there can be some uncertainty. I kind of find that quite fun. I've always enjoyed that, but I think that's how I've sort of grown up watching films. So, you know, like yourself, I don't watch films I loved as a kid and I don't touch them, and as an adult I'm scared to watch them. I love watching films I used to watch as a kid because I like seeing, you can see your own personal growth in your tastes when you look at a film and go, oh, that's a shame. I really thought Barry's Not Included was the best movie ever when I was a kid, and now I'm like, oh, okay, I can see what it's doing, and there are elements of it that are absolutely incredible. Then there are other elements that are a bit like, you know, oh, this kind of wants to be E.T. and isn't succeeding. And so there's things like that you can look at, and that's not me knocking Barry's Not Included. I love Barry's Not Included as an adult still, but you can see the difference between that and, say, E.T. and Mac and Me. I think that when it comes to tone, there were things in those films that scared me as a kid. Then as an adult, I see, oh no, that's funny. And you know, same thing with Jaws. The things in Jaws that terrified me as a kid, I watch Jaws as an adult now, and the emotional response is not even close to the same. My heart isn't pounding, my mouth isn't dry, I don't have to pretend I'm not scared anymore. I look at it and I see the humor in that film that I never recognized as a kid. So I think it's okay to have the two things sort of pulling against each other a little bit, you know, the humor and the drama. And sometimes, you know, not necessarily tears, but an earnestness to the emotional sort of response, like not wanting to sort of spoil the film when we choose to kill certain characters off. I wanted those moments to feel like they would, which is, and it became, the only thing that became a problem in the writing was I found it hard to write the characters in a way where they would let go that a friend of theirs had died. And so the trick is not hammering that over the head to the point where you ruin an otherwise fun movie, but to allow those moments to play honestly. So in, you know, there's a scene like towards the end where I think the decision is we shouldn't leave our dead. And I remember thinking, oh, that's going to play in a way where the audience are going to go like with Ripley and Jones in Alien and go, screw the cat, just leave the cat, just get out of there. And I think if we've done our job right, you shouldn't think that. You should go, that makes sense. And, you know, and if you don't think it makes sense, well, you know, I'm not responsible for how cold you are as an individual. It's not what do you want from me. Would you leave your mother behind? You know, in a building that's going to get demolished? You know, I think if there's a filmmaker I take a lot from, it's Sam Raimi. If there's a film that influences me a huge deal, which I didn't realize, it took me a long time to realize, is Grosse Pointe Blank. I didn't realize how much I loved the humor in that film, but when the action kicks off, like the Benny the Jet fight is incredible. It's really tense. And so I think it's just having those influences. Ghostbusters is another example where, you know, the ghosts are scary, but the characters are fun. It's never the case of saying something like The Mummy, which is emulating Indiana Jones, but Brendan Fraser sees a mummy and goes, ah, at it. Indiana Jones never did that. Indiana Jones was like, this is weird, this is frightening, and would play that, and that gets you into the character more. And I think it's just looking at those things that for me resonate a little bit more, and that's what I've always liked, if that makes sense. I think it's important to market the films sort of honestly. I think the hook of taking the action and pushing that angle of it is a really good shout, because that's some of our high point moments in the film. But, you know, I don't think, I wouldn't call it an action film as such. It's kind of like in the weird way where this film has as much action as The Raid has talking. Like, The Raid is about 25% chit-chat. The rest of it is just ass-kicking. We are the opposite of that. We have about like 75% talking, about 25% like, you know, action. But I think that's where the characters for us need to work. When you need to enjoy not just the main characters, but the sub characters, and all the way down to the. I come from that sort of. I read somewhere that Jonathan Demme believed that there's no such thing as an extra. Everyone's a character, and this is their moment. And how much character can we work into this little moment we have with these characters who float through our movies? And I've always felt the same, which is why I've always tried to in these movies had something from top to bottom. It's interesting because I think that with Colin came a lot of really interesting opportunities, and I ended up doing a lot of work in development for television, and I got a little bit worried because I spent so much time working on sort of like, you know, shows that didn't get made and stuff, and pitches that didn't get made. I mean, we'd shoot a couple of pilots here and there. I started to think, oh, I better do something, otherwise it's going to be really hard to get a job actually doing something. And that's kind of when Nightshooters came along, really. I mean, I made another film after Colin, a really small sort of personal drama called Magpie. which wasn't a genre film at all. It was, you know, just a small little movie shot on a DSLR in about 2 weeks, and about a useless dad who comes back for his son's funeral, nicks the coffin, and hits the road with his ex-girlfriend. Yeah, it's very different to. I mean, there are themes. There are themes in all the films. There's always a theme in my film of sort of like family separation and death. Those two things seem to always crop up in things. Colin was about that, and Marc Price was about that, and elements of Nightshooters are about that as well, with, you know, the film crew in its own way being like a family. And so there's so that's always sort of like, I guess, the angle I look at for telling the stories. But as for opportunities, it's kind of strange. I think I have a very strong idea for what I want to do, so I'll sort of fight to make those movies. And, you know, the downside to that is people sort of go, oh well, you know, we're not going to give you the money to make that then. But that's what happens, and I think it's just a case of, you know, just sticking to your guns, and then at some point someone will share that vision or not care enough what you do, and then you can just make your movie. And I think in the case of Nightshooters, we were just left alone to make it. It's an odd sort of it's an odd sort of pond, this low budget filmmaking one, where the money comes from such different places. It's really interesting to have had 2 films financed in 2 different ways, and it's very, for us, it was really interesting to see how the money comes in from this angle. And we had freedom for both films, but yeah, it's just the management of it, really. And I'm just lucky I've got a very good producer who is a wonderful sort of firewall to keep me. Oh, because I'll ruin stuff by going, hey, no, that's a dumb idea, let's not do that. And she'd be like, okay, I'll reply to that email. Okay, we'll look into it. There we go. Usually things don't come up anymore. I'm more like, nah, that's stupid. Let's not do that. But I think that's the job of a good producer, though, really, is to sort of stop me from being an idiot and messing things up, and sort of coming in and cleaning up any mess. And I think my producer's been amazing. Michelle's been the best at that on 2 films, 3 this year. I didn't direct one of them, and a 4th one in the new year, and see what we can do in the next year. So yeah, so it's been a good sort of year for that sort of stuff, I think. I think for anyone trying to make a film, the trick is to make it and to not assess your success based on what others think. You're your best critic. You know when you've made something, whether you have done it to the best of your skills, where you need to improve, or if you kind of nailed it and this is great, but then this bit doesn't work so well. I think the trick is to just keep making films. And if you make the best film you think you're ever going to make, and you can't for love or money get it distributed in a traditional sense, just put it out there. There are platforms now that allow for films to get released, like YouTube is a great one. Yeah, there's a downside on YouTube. You put it on there, you're gonna have a bunch of strangers coming in and calling you a cunt. That's that's a thing, right? But you got to look at the fact that you got something made. You've got it out there. You can continue to make films. Every film you make will be better than the last one, because you've learned so much from that experience, especially making it on your own terms. I think that's just the trick with films. You have to keep making them. Make shorts, and don't say, oh, the time's not right, because you know what, the time is never right. There's someone I know who kept saying to me, the time isn't right, the time isn't right. And then 7 years later, this guy sent me a link to a film, said, the time was right, I finished my movie, and I watched it, and it was terrible. This is 7 years later, and I'm not being mean. This was 7 years later, and it was his first film, and it was terrible. If he would have made that piece of shit 7 years earlier, he'd be 7 years a better filmmaker by the time he was sending me whatever he was going to send me then. So don't wait about the time. Don't worry about the time being right. Just make something. Make your piece of shit now, and in 7 years' time, you'll be a better filmmaker. And, you know, I'm still making my pieces of shit. So hopefully in 7 years' time, I'll be slightly better. That would be great. I think when I was younger, I think I remember that the first filmmakers that I remember knowing who they were and responding to names as filmmakers would be sort of like, I guess, Spielberg and George Lucas, because, you know, Spielberg was popular in our house, and so was Star Wars. So, you know, and I'd say it was definitely those two. I think when it comes to looking at the sort of filmmaker I imagine that I sort of fall into, I imagine I'm probably more of a Larry Cohen sort of guy, where I'm just like, oh yeah, our film's gonna have like sort of like cheap little quality to it, but there's hopefully something for people to find if they take the time to watch the films. And I'm okay with that. I'm very, very comfortable with that. You know, it might be more Roger Corman, I don't know. but I got time for Roger Corman movies too. So yeah, but I think that the influences I kind of have as an adult all sort of kind of come from the experience of watching a film with my family, and also as friends, and I've noticed that a pattern I've always had. I've always been interested in audiences and how they respond to things. So I'd watch a film in the cinema and I'd love it, but then I'd say, "Hey everyone, we have to watch this now," and I'd sort of sit back, and because I'll never have that experience of surprise and watching a film for the first time again, so I watch other people watching it. So I kind of really enjoy getting a group of people together and then just watching them watch a film I love. My reaction when someone says, "Oh, I haven't seen Jaws, I haven't seen Aliens," isn't, because I've heard this, and I'm not sure this is the best reaction. What? You're an idiot. Well, my reaction is usually, "No way, amazing, we have to watch that, so I can watch you watch Jaws, because I have to experience that vicariously through others now, because I'm fucked. I know that film off by heart. I ain't gonna be I'm never going to have that experience of watching it for the first time again. So yeah, I kind of I'm really into that. That I've always been super fond of. So I think the influences come from knowing what those films can do, looking at those reactions that they have on audiences, and having kind of a thirst to create that emotional connection. And where I've always come from with my films is like I've got kind of a low aim for where I think my films will go in terms of reach, and I assume they're just going to be my friends that will watch them. And the biggest hurdle there is I need to make them forget for 90 minutes that they're watching a film with people they know in it, that they are watching a film that I made. So I kind of need them to forget all that stuff. And I think that was one of the biggest goals behind Colin, was trying to make it in a way where they'd acclimatize to the grotty cinematography of like a shitty camcorder in Tooting and get emotionally involved in the story and forget they were looking at Alistair, who was a friend of everyone who I had at that first screening. And the same thing then for Magpie, and again for Nightshooters. So it's nice, and it's interesting because I now look at characters like Nikki and I see Oddbod. It's like there's a very distinct difference between those two characters. And the same thing with Rosie as Ellie, and Caitlin as Jen, and Adam as Marshall. It's really sweet actually. The cinematographer on another film I did, Sam Walker, incredible cinematographer. He wasn't the cinematographer on Nightshooters, that was Tom Barker. Sam Walker came to the screening of Nightshooters, to one of the screenings, and Adam McNabb was there, and he was uncomfortable going up to him because he thought, "Oh, he's a bit of a dick." And he went, "Oh no, he's only a dick in the film. I'll say hello." And they got on really, really well. And he's like, "This guy's really lovely, really funny, and a really nice actor." And I was like, "Yep, that's I try not to have too many pricks on a film. It makes life so much easier." It's all part of that thing. There's that illusion of reality that you're creating in a piece of fiction, where you can hopefully feel tremendous loss when I decide to kill a character, but then piss yourself laughing at a dude cartoonishly splatting into the ground in 3 minutes time. After that, I enjoy that. That's filmmaking for me.
Find them and kill them! I've got an idea. I want to use someone who can throw a punch. We make cinema, you cunt!
I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to subscribe to see more retrospectives and commentaries. Also click on the bell to be notified of the latest reviews. If you want access to exclusive videos and to watch my content a few days before it's on YouTube, you can head on over to my Patreon. Thank you very much.